She wasn't supposed to bring the puppy to work, and she definitely wasn't supposed to still be thinking about quitting while sitting in a newsroom with a live broadcast minutes away. But that morning, nothing felt normal anymore. And what happened during that broadcast wasn't loud or dramatic or even planned. Most people watching wouldn't have noticed it at all. But for her, it was the first time in months. Something felt different. Claire had been a local news reporter for 11 years. She started at 23, careful, focused, the kind of person who double-checked everything before handing it in. Over time, the nerves faded, the habits stayed. She showed up, did the work, moved on to the next thing. She was 34 now. She lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment that was fine, clean enough, quiet enough. Her editors trusted her. Viewers recognized her face. On paper, everything looked steady. Off paper, it felt different. Not in a dramatic way. Nothing had broken. Nothing had gone wrong. It was quieter than that. A slow kind of draining. The kind where your days still function, but they don't feel like they belong to you anymore. About 6 weeks before that Tuesday, she adopted a golden retriever puppy, 8 weeks old. She named him Biscuit. It hadn't been planned. Someone shared a photo, and she said yes before thinking it through. People mentioned the timing. She nodded and went to pick him up anyway. What she didn't expect was how quickly he became the only part of her day that felt uncomplicated. No expectations, no pressure, just presence. Coming home to something warm and awake and genuinely glad to see her, she hadn't realized how long it had been since she'd had that. Biscuit had been there 6 weeks. He already felt like part of the apartment. The tiredness hadn't come from one thing. It had built slowly. The restructuring earlier in the year that added work without adding time. The story she spent 2 weeks on that aired for less than a minute. The questions she asked that no one followed up on. Small things, but they stacked. The award she'd once cared about now sat in a drawer. She hadn't even noticed when she put it there. And the hardest part wasn't frustration. It was the absence of it. Because frustration would have meant she still cared enough to feel something sharp. What she felt instead was quieter than that. And that scared her more. A few weeks before, she'd started writing a resignation letter in her phone. She never finished it, never deleted it either, just left it there. Like something waiting for the right moment. That Tuesday morning, sitting in the parking garage, she realized she'd been sitting still for 10 minutes, not checking her phone, not listening to anything, just sitting. That's usually when you notice something's off. She got out of the car, she went inside, she did her job, same way she always did. But something about that morning didn't feel like it would end the same way. At 6:15, her phone rang. It was Helen, the neighbor who had been watching Biscuit since the beginning. A reliable, kind, someone whom Claire can trust with Biscuit. But something had came up. Her daughter needed help. The kids needed her immediate attention. So she was sorry. She'd make it up to her next time, but not that faithful day. Claire told her not to worry. Knowing her, family should come first before hers. She hung up and looked across the room. Biscuit was sitting on his bed, watching her the way puppies do, quiet, curious, completely unaware of the problem that had just landed in the middle of her morning. She made a few calls to know if another options can be made available, but got no answer. She sent a few texts to some friends, but they are all busy with their daily schedules. Now the time is ticking fast, past 6:47 a.m. She needed to leave as soon as possible. She stood there for a moment, still in her willing work clothes, looking at this small golden puppy who wagged his tail once, slowly, not excited, just acknowledging her, like he always did. She reached for a bag, a blanket, a toy, a small container of food. She packed without rushing, not because she was sure, but because she didn't have time not to decide. She sent a message to her producer. Sitter fell through. I have the puppy with me. He'll stay under the desk. A short pause, then a reply. Keep him away from the cables. That was it. She clipped the leash, picked him up, and headed out. In the car, he sat quietly in the passenger seat, one paw resting near the center console, watching the road ahead like he understood where they were going. She wasn't sure it was the right decision, but she was already driving. The newsroom carried its usual rhythm. Phones, calls, voices, screens layered with information. Not chaotic, just full. Claire stepped in with Biscuit in her arms, and for a brief moment, something shifted. A glance, a small smile, a hand reaching down, then
Claire, what's on the schedule for today?
back to work. Marcus walked her through the day's schedule, nothing unusual, which somehow made it feel heavier. She settled Biscuit under her desk, wrapped in his blanket beside her bag. He adjusted once, then went still. She worked, calls, scripts, notes. Every so often she glanced down without thinking. At one point his paw had drifted lightly against her shoe. He didn't know he'd done it. It was just where he'd settled. She went back to the screen. By late afternoon, the work pace tightened, as it always did.
Yes, confirmed.
Voices got shorter, movements more precise. Claire reviewed her script again, then again, not because she needed to, but because it gave her something to hold on to. Because in the small spaces between tasks, the thought came back. The letter, the question she hadn't answered. She looked down. Biscuit was awake now, watching the room quietly. Not restless, not unsure, just there. The broadcast started. The same lights, the same cameras, the same measured rhythm she'd
evening.
followed for years.
Our top-
Claire stood at the anchor position with her script resting lightly in her hands, the studio monitors glowing around her, controlled, professional, steady. From the outside, nothing looked unusual. About 4 minutes in, a pre-recorded segment rolled, giving her a short pause before the next live read. She looked down. Biscuit had shifted slightly inside the padded bag and crawled to her feet. His chin rested softly on the edge of it, facing her. His breathing had slowed into that deep, even rhythm dogs fall into when they've decided they're completely safe. The newsroom was still moving around them, producers talking quietly into headsets, cameras repositioning, graphics changing on monitors overhead, but none of it seemed to matter to him. And for the first time in months, the room didn't feel quite so heavy. As the next segment began, one of the studio cameras slowly widened for the transition shot. Not intentionally, just routine movement. The frame pulled back slightly farther than usual. Far enough to catch the edge of the bag beside her feet. Far enough to reveal a tiny golden retriever puppy sleeping peacefully beneath the anchor desk while Claire continued reading the news. He wasn't reacting to the lights, wasn't nervous about the noise. He was just settled, completely comfortable, because she was nearby. Claire watched him for a second, and something in her chest didn't break. It just loosened, like a weight shifting slightly after sitting in the same position for too long. Small, physical, real. She looked back up at the monitor. 40 seconds until she was live again. She just breathed in fully, then out.